Hey everyone, I'm Logan Guerry for DAS42. I'm a principal consultant specializing in advertising, media, and entertainment, and I'm here today to show you DAS42's exciting work with Identity Hub, our solution for taking your unresolved user records and turning them into actionable segments that you can push into any ad platform. I'm here today to talk about a classic challenge that DAS42 sees publishers and advertisers facing on a regular basis, and that's analyzing and activating quality audience segments. Most organizations really believe that they understand their customers, but in reality, they are operating on a really incomplete picture. While many B2C companies collect very large volumes of data on their customers or their users, it's typical that they're constrained to really just basic identifiers about those users and some loose and disparate signals on how the customers are using the platform, product, or service. That data explains what a customer did, but it does not say who they are, why they act, and what they will do next, much less what will resonate with them from an advertising perspective. This gap has real, meaningful impact when it comes to revenue. And without richer customer context, there's really no way of getting around that. Conversion rates stay flat, acquisition costs go up, opportunities to expand lifetime value of the customer or user really plateau and they're often missed. And that's where identity resolution, enrichment, and activation comes in to help B2C companies understand their users and customers better and then go out and actually acquire new ones. Or in the case of publishers, helps them understand what high value segments they have access to from an inventory perspective and make those segments available to advertisers through ad exchanges. Today, we're going to talk about the former. Like I mentioned earlier, identity enrichment delivered by DAS42 in the Snowflake ecosystem closes that gap by augmenting the first-party data that publishers have on their users, on their viewers, and enriching it with a comprehensive suite of demographic, geographic, psychographic, and behavioral attributes. Organizations can gain a much higher fidelity picture of who their viewers are, and then do more meaningful segmentation in ad platforms based on that information. In short, identity enrichment transforms customer data from a record of past interactions or viewership with your platform and turns it into fuel that can actually grow ad revenue significantly through refined targeting and audience publishing. So jumping in here to the Identity Hub solution that DAS42 has built, I want to start by highlighting again what the problem is for a publisher, especially a multimedia publisher. What we see here is that with regards to individual platform users across a publisher's ecosystem of CTV streams, a mobile app, a website, and potentially other touch points, there's 46,000 dispersed users. These could be in many cases, the same person, but accessing or interacting with the brand or with the publisher through different platforms. So we need to identify how many people is this, and without identity resolution, that's nearly impossible. The publisher is flying blind, and we're potentially showing redundant content or serving up ad pods that are redundant for a single user. So to resolve that, we need to go from these disparate records for users across the platform and resolve down to individual real-world individuals or households, whatever it may be. In this case, for today's demo, we'll be looking at individuals. So you can see the publisher data that we're working with here. Like I mentioned earlier, they have a CTV platform, a mobile application, and a website, all of which collect different points of usage data from folks accessing it. And if combined, could paint a much clearer picture for what the user journey actually looks like for this publisher. So just to give some quick visual context on this, we have, again, our records for our CTV users where we collect details like the device that they're accessing the platform from. If we offer a paid CTV option, we see subscription tiering there. And then we collect some high-level details, or rather we resolve it based on the content on the CTV stream that user is viewing. In this case, we're pretending that we're a sports publisher, Podium Publishing. And so through our programming, we've been able to identify for this person, for example, their most viewed sport on the channel is hockey. Great. Then you can see mobile app, different inputs there for users. So here, in many cases, we will collect some authentication details for the customer, things like email, details about the device that they're accessing from. And again, we can resolve based on the content that they've viewed in the platform, some other insights about them, like their favorite team, since the mobile application in this case will pretend has a way for the user to actually select that and get bespoke content based off of it. And the same story with web. Don't need to necessarily go all the way down that rabbit hole, but the throughput here being web users, or rather the web platform also collects a distinct set of attributes. So the goal here, if we can, is to resolve these disparate user records down to actual individuals, where we can say this person who's on Roku on a premium subscription and loves MMA is the same person accessing the website from Safari, and has pretty high session averages on the website. To do that, there's two approaches. Both of them hinge on the concept of an identity graph, and really the only difference between them is if that identity graph is built internally or sourced from a third party. DAS42 has extensive experience in helping clients build out internal identity graphs through a whole host of deterministic and probabilistic modeling to link users from those different systems together without the need to reach out to a third party. However, for customers or companies that want a more turnkey solution, there's a robust ecosystem of identity graph providers that can provide an identity graph and make linking across mobile devices, web access, and other platforms like CTV very easy just through the digital identifiers that companies collect from each of those platforms. So for the purpose of this demo, we will pretend that we have an internal identity graph built out, but all of the insights that we'll see here would be the same had we sourced this from an external third party through the Snowflake Marketplace or just the open market. And what we see here is we're now able to actually identify individuals, not just user records from each platform, and start to get a sense of how real-world individuals interact with the platform across multiple channels. So we can see here a high-level breakdown of if a given individual is just a single platform user, maybe they only view our CTV stream every so often, and then dual and tri-platform users as well, which indicates users who are much more engaged with the platform. And from an advertising perspective, when we think about, as a publisher, serving up ad segments or audience segments, multi-platform users, more valuable segment drives a higher CPM because we know that we can successfully reach them through different arms of the business. So we get an overview here, right, of how good of a job we're doing actually resolving individual users across platforms. Again, DAS42 has extensive experience building probabilistic matching methods to link users, and we get accuracy scores here, confidence scores that indicate how good that the identity graph is doing. And then down here, we can actually start to do some real analysis on who our individual users are and get a much better picture as a publisher for who is accessing our platform, what are they interested in, what does their journey with our different channels actually look like. So, if we want to take a close look at premium users who are tri-channel and maybe within, let's say, let's just do a fixed date range. Let's say that there was let's say that there was a sporting event in that date range that we were curious about. We actually, and this is updated in the background here as I was clicking through that. We have an updated list, all well and good, but the real power of what DAS42 has built goes beyond just resolution. This is, we encourage folks to think of this as a prerequisite step to where you can drive real value from your resolved users. In many cases, as a publisher, it is going to be very valuable to have this resolved view of your users. It allows you to start doing things like adjusting content. You can, assuming that you have the infrastructure in place with your mobile and web apps, you can start doing highly personalized content once you understand in detail who is behind each of those screens. But beyond just internal efforts to affect publishing content and what we as a publisher are serving up in our platform, we want to go beyond this and start to identify who are our high value users and how can we enable advertisers to do selective placement on them in our platform. So from there, we will take a look at segmentation. So now that we have resolved down, and I'll actually go back to the overview pane here just to give us a sense of how that resolution effort that we just talked about worked. We went from 46,000 disparate user records across our different channels and have resolved those down to 17,000 odd unique individuals in the real world. So we have a much clearer picture of who our users are. And at this point, we want to go actually learn more about those users from third-party sources, data that a publisher could not collect themselves, so that we can develop a richer sense of who this person is in the real world, not just their behavioral patterns in how they view and interact with our content, but again, who they are in the real world, so that we can start to define more clear audience segments and go from there. So, like I mentioned, with resolved users alone, we can already begin to develop meaningful segments of users for the platform, even without knowing external details about them. So, for example, just through knowing that someone, let's pick an existing segment from our usage platform. If we see that 96% of someone's viewership on the CTV stream is for NFL games, and they interact with NFL content on the web and mobile platform in equal proportion, we can start to segment users based on their affinity for different platform content, and internally develop a sense of who our audience is and who we're serving. And you can see the Identity Hub solution that DAS42 builds allows users just through this custom front end to actually build and iterate on segments. So as the nature of user signals in the business changes, content shifts over time, user patterns change, we can dynamically iterate and identify new meaningful segments of users to help us tailor our content, tailor our channel mix to keep them engaged. So really still on the note of internal optimization for the publisher. And then from here, we come to enrichment. Now that we know who these users are, we want to truly understand them. And to do that, we need more behavioral data, more external data that we would not naturally be able to collect first party. And that's where things like the Snowflake Marketplace come in, and the clean room framework as well. In Snowflake, through both of those methods, there is access to a wide array of third-party data, ranging all kinds of categories: behavioral, demographic, lifestyle, financial, psychographic. Really, it's quite limitless. If there is a niche of data that an organization seeks to attach to individuals, there's very likely going to be an identity provider in the Snowflake ecosystem that can provide that. And for the sake of this demo, we've pulled out a few here that do have support in the Snowflake ecosystem: Experian, LiveRamp, Axiom and TransUnion, all with their respective specialties. This is just a short list of the types of attributes that are accessible from those providers, but it gives a sense of the types of things that users can do when it comes to linking third-party data to their first-party resolved user records. So here through the Identity Hub, we can start to do several things. We can monitor the actual enrichment runs that we have in the background. So on a previous page where the user can specify segments, create new segments of their users, we can also launch enrichment jobs in the underlying warehouse in Snowflake, and we get a sense of that here. We see that we have a long-running list of completed enrichment jobs where we've taken a specific segment, like cord cutters, who we identified as folks who are leaving traditional cable and satellite and increasingly using CTV as their primary source for television. And we've sent that up to the Oracle Data Cloud to get a subset of enriched details on those people. We want to develop a better sense of who is actually behind that screen, not just how they behave with our platform, but what are some meaningful real-world details that we can use in audience segmentation for advertising purposes. And we can, down here, get a sense of what some of those outputs can look like. So oftentimes, demographic details are going to be the sort of gold standard for being able to do meaningful segmentation. Things like household income, age range, and much, much more from there. So from here, with completed enrichment, we can start to get a true sense of who our user base is beyond just how they interact with the platform, right? So we can see a high concentration in the 25 to 45 range, and also in the 100K to 150K bracket for income. So from here, the exciting piece as a publisher is with this refined insight, traditionally marketing and advertising teams would take these insights, go out and seek to manually build audience pods in SSPs or PMPs. DAS42's Identity Hub solution actually supports activation of user segments directly from this platform. So as we've made our way here over to the activation page, we can see that we're actually able to analyze existing audience segments that we have onboarded to SSP and PMP platforms, allowing advertisers to actually purchase against those segments. And we're able to further refine and publish new segments as we identify them. So now we've made it to the final step, which is actually where the rubber really meets the road, and the revenue generating prospects of this effort become real for publishers. So here in the Identity Hub, we have our activation portal. This gives users, publishers, the ability to get analytics on how their current listings across multiple SSP and PMP platforms are performing. You can see we have high-level details, active segments, a sense of how our impressions are performing so far this month, the average CPM that we're getting for our resolved identity-enriched segments that we have published to those platforms, and a sense of revenue that we're generating from them. And we can also look specifically at activation within each platforms for specific segments. So if you recall from the previous section when we were looking at enrichment, and we had identified from our resolution efforts, NFL superfans, having enriched those user records, we identified the subset of them that represent high income, and we're specifically looking to onboard a segment that is in CTV exclusively. Here we have already published that audience up through to Google Ad Manager, and we can get some insights on how it's performing. Pacing's a little low, but overall CPM looks good. It is slightly below our average CPM, but from here we can adjust, right? Monitor how our segmentation efforts are actually working and refine our strategy there. You can see we also have a good comparison with having the same segment on a different platform where pacing a good bit worse, but average CPM actually just above what we're tracking across the board. So strong indicators, right? That from a publishing perspective or activation perspective, we may want to lean on Trade Desk heavier for this audience segment. And beyond just monitoring what is in place currently as far as onboarded segments and how they are working, we from this platform can actually explore and launch, or rather activate new segments while getting some preemptive indicators on how we expect them to perform. So here, we can say I'm interested in, let's do just our multi-platform users. So folks who are stemming across CTV and the other platforms. Let's say we're interested in targeting homeowners specifically. We're going to go for a higher income bracket. We'll leave education across the board, and we'll say that we're looking to provide some later career segments. So get up into that higher age range. And again, if we're in this case, let's pretend that we're trying to be hyper prescriptive and really go after. Let's do event tickets. That makes sense. Okay. And why not? We'll go across the board and say we're just looking for folks with good credit. So we can see here a breakdown of that actual segment and some high-level details, representation of actual size, how many of those folks are multi-platform, but most importantly, we get indicators on our estimated CPM yield from onboarding that audience. So we can really refine, the way that we're handling segment publishing and activation, and match it up to the indicators that we're getting back from the demand side of exchanges, so that the publisher can optimize for CPM and ad revenue and fill rate as well by tailoring the segments that are being activated. We can see here, just because the audience size is super small, not the most impressive monthly revenue, but at scale, the math still works out. And like I said, the exciting thing about this platform is that all of the refinement pieces that we've talked about with user segmentation and the invocation or scheduling of enrichment jobs, that can all be done directly from this platform without the need to go back to Snowflake or jump into another CDP platform or CRM platform to do any of these actions. And in the case of audience activation, with this refined audience here, we can actually activate directly into the platforms of choice that we have onboarded. I think I might have breezed past that part, but let me show. Or actually, it was up here at the top. Yeah, our different SSP and PMP platforms where we can do audience activation. So now that we've zeroed in on what we've deemed to be, a high value segment, volume's a little low here for the sake of the demo, but we can see exceptionally high CPM for a targeted audience, multi-platform users that fit all of the criteria that we want to provide in the supply side platforms. We can actually activate this segment in those different platforms directly from the Identity Hub solution that DAS42 has built. And we can see we have just above here a list of the possible destinations that this publisher has configured. So a range from Google Ads Manager to Trade Desk for PMP contracts specifically, and other options as well, including the LiveRamp Clean Room in the Snowflake Marketplace, a option that is gaining a lot of traction for security reasons and data access reasons as well. and direct data shares in the Snowflake ecosystem as well. So direct publishing all from one platform is one of the many advantages of DAS42's Identity Hub solution. So now that we've used an internal identity graph to resolve our disparate user records across the different platforms, CTV, mobile, and web, into unified individual records where we can track a user's past interactions across those different platforms. As a publisher, we can move on to doing meaningful segmentation of our internal users to better understand, where clusters of users live, their behavioral patterns, and how we may want to adjust either our content or our platform offerings and subscription tiers to meet them where they're at. This will also be a great launching point for enrichment, which we'll get to here in just a moment, where having identified behaviorally consistent clusters of users, we can go collect good third-party data on them and actually make them an addressable market for advertisers who might want to interact with this platform or interact with those users. So as we can see here, some existing segments that we've already built based on the usage patterns that we see from our resolved users. A good example of one that can have very real actionable insights for us as a publisher would be users who we've identified as high risk for churn. These may be users who have had a premium subscription on the CTV platform for a while. We've seen their mobile and web access dwindle over time and become less frequent. Their average sessions in CTV are also getting shorter. All things that point towards becoming a bit disillusioned with the platform and possibly at risk of churn. So with that information, targeted outreach to these individuals for promotion discounts to keep them on that premium subscription, or tailored content in the mobile or web platform that align more to maybe their favorite sports teams, like we have captured from the mobile platform. All things that can work to counteract a propensity to churn from the platform. And then when we think about user segmentation as it relates to ad activation, identifying behavioral segments or interest segments like NFL superfans, for example, where we see a high rate of engagement with NFL-specific content across platforms. These user segments act as strong bases for audience segments that we would want to onboard into PMPs and SSPs and get published so that we can see ad revenue there from advertisers. And to do that, we can go out and enrich those users to learn more about them. So as we've seen today, we went from 46,000 disparate user records as a publisher to 17,000 resolved users, high volume of which we were able to enrich and actually get onboarded and published as active audience segments in our SSP and PMP platforms with exceptionally high CPM rates and full observability on how those segments are performing by platform, really making the entire experience for an advertiser end-to-end in this single identity hub. Thank you for joining me today as we talked through DAS42's identity resolution and enrichment solution. If you have any questions or if you'd like to talk more, please feel free to reach out at DAS42.com/connect.